Hi, I'm making this video because I feel like every single channel on YouTube that talks about eating disorders and anorexia talks about it from a recovery perspective. I wish that people could be more open about anorexia on this site without coming from the perspective of the medical establishment. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to authentically portray my experiences and my thoughts and feelings on the topic. Like, I'm not in recovery. I will never be in recovery, and I do not want recovery. It's just not for me. I like my eating disorder. I want to keep my eating disorder, and recovery would just feel like I'm failing myself and failing my purpose in life. Like, for me, anorexia is liberatory. It's liberation. It's really the only thing that gives me value as a person. And it kind of just makes everything else just blur away into nothingness. It's the greatest sense of like peace. It's the only thing I've ever really been good at, and it's the only thing that makes me happy. So like recovery would be robbing me of my life. And for like all the people who say you only feel like this because you have a disorder and your mind is like captured by the disorder, I've been in hospital settings and been forced to become fat. I've even tried recovery in the past. Each time it just made me more committed to anorexia and to making my body perfect and pure again. This is just who I am, and that's a fact of my life. So the topic of this video is just why I don't really believe that anorexia is a mental illness. And I don't really think mental illness term like says much. Like mental illness is just so vague. Like when people say anorexia is a mental illness, it's really just a way of denying us our rights to our own bodies. And it's an excuse to not listen to us and to like dismiss our own viewpoints. And, rather than something based in like science, like a couple of decades ago, people were called crazy and dismissed and like persecuted under the same label of mental illness for being homosexual or for being like transgender. Like this isn't a settled science, this is a common like tool of control. And there's like academics who openly admit that the label of mental illness is a moral one, like when it's applied to anorexics, and they point to how like other societies understand like self-starvation in like completely different ways. If you think about it, what is a mental illness? Like, what is a mental illness meant to be? Well, it's meant to be like a delusion, right? But what delusions does an anorexic person actually have? Anorexic people like might say things you find delusional sometimes, but oftentimes I feel like we actually have more of a foot in reality than most common people. Like people always try to scare anorexics out of it, like by saying that losing weight and restricting your diet can have negative health effects. But anorexics are probably more aware of these actual negative health effects than the general public. And, I'd argue like many doctors who aren't like specialists, like, we've lived it. We're living these facts and, we probably research it more than you. And if we thought that it wasn't worth it, to experience these things, we would be seeking recovery. I actually don't care if I die from anorexia because I would rather die and be pretty and pure than be fat and alive. But that's not a delusion. That's just a decision. Like, I'm fully aware of all of the facts here. It's not like a schizophrenic person who thinks that they have insects under their skin or something. I know what's going on with my body. No actual facts are in dispute. So how am I delusional? What? Because I'd like my body to be like different than how you would, but it's literally my body. Why should you have any say over it at all? Like, how is an anorexic saying that they want to be dangerously thin any more mentally ill than people who get cosmetic surgeries to change their appearance? Or even like transgender people who think that they can't be happy without castrating themselves. Like, it's an opinion. Just because it's not a common one, that doesn't mean that you can say it's wrong. Like, what right do you have to tell me what's right or wrong for my body? Ultimately, really, people just want to deny others bodily autonomy. So they make up the category of mental illness and apply it where there is none. Other societies treated anorexia completely different. Like in the Middle Ages in Europe, anorexic girls were treated as saints. And even in places like Jainist communities in India today, starving to death is seen as a legitimate spiritual practice rather than something to be punished and banned. It's true that anorexia can be a distressing experience for loads of people, but it can also be a positive one, and people just seem to like miss this. Like loads of lifestyles can be distressing, but aren't considered mental illnesses. Like being transgender is distressing, but it's no longer considered a mental illness. And people always bring up the fucking Minnesota starvation experiment, which was basically some experiment after World War II where they made a bunch of men starve and lose weight and recorded the effects. And they always say, like doctors and stuff will always say this study shows that anorexia is actually a mental illness because the people in the experiment showed similar symptoms to an anorexic, like in how they ate and stuff. And they were like heavily mentally distressed. And then all of that kind of went away when they gained weight. And people use the study to justify locking up and force feeding anorexics. But like if you actually think about it for 2 seconds, this is just bullshit. Like to begin with, anorexics are not forced into losing weight. We choose to do this, and it's what we want. If we didn't want it, you wouldn't have to force fucking tubes down our neck in order to get us to stop. Obviously, for people who want to do something, like people who want to lose weight, the psychological effects of actually losing that weight is going to be different than people who don't want to lose weight and are just doing it for a study. One is an extension of our autonomy and, is actually regaining control of our bodies, in a world where everyone is just telling us how our bodies should be and what to do. And the other is just not that at all. I didn't get how anyone buys this argument at all. And like, unlike the people in the study, when an anorexic gains weight, they don't stop being anorexic. They don't stop, wanting to lose weight. They don't stop having these behaviors because anorexia is almost like a lifelong thing. Like even people who've gone through recovery, they still think about it all the time because it really does come from within your mind, within your soul. Like for me, when I'm restricting my diet, I have the greatest sense of clarity and grace and purity. The entire world basically means nothing because I have like the most absolute control of my most base bodily desires. It's a means of empowerment, really, and it's honestly deeply spiritual. Like when you're thin, you know, nothing means anything. Like, you're fine with dying. You embrace the idea of dying because you're just on good terms with every aspect of reality. And like, I'm not saying that everyone should become anorexic or anything crazy like that. I'm just saying I don't buy at all that anorexia is a mental illness. Like in my perspective, it's a legitimate way of living your life, and it's an extension of the principle of bodily autonomy that people respect that. So I wish people would, take anorexic people more seriously, and I wish people would stop approaching it as like a dangerous mental illness that needs to be like silenced, and that you can't have anorexia and not want recovery. Like some people actually like anorexia and want to keep it. And I just wish people would, understand that when people call it a mental illness, it doesn't mean anything other than like they want us locked up. It's just a means of denying us our own rights. Anyway, thanks for listening to whatever like people fucking listen to me on this.